listening to Filling the Storehouse podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Stuart. And we want to walk with you on the journey to living the abundant life through faith, family, and freedom. Our goal is to refine our why while helping you find yours. Together, achieve our best and highest purpose. In the end, we'll drive each other to intentionally fill our storehouse.
In the last 10 months, Stu and I have taken huge steps in putting words into action, and we've been prioritizing what's most important to us and integrating those things into our lives, into our calendars, and just being very intentional with our actions to try and cultivate our relationships, our families, our friends, as husbands, as dads, as leaders. And in that, we started the Storehouse Mastermind.
Yeah, buddy, Storehouse Mastermind. We're opening up our next house. Starts August 1st. We're taking applications through the end of July. And we only have a few spots left. There's been a lot of interest so far. So, hey, men, take action. Let's get after it. Let's have some major breakthroughs, which we've already had in our first group. It's been amazing. Go to storehouse310.com/mastermind and hit that join now button and submit that application, because you will not regret it. I promise.
You're high performing, high achieving, and an action taker. Come join a group of kinetic men and get better. Look forward to seeing you.
Get better. See ya.
Be better. Be strong.
Okay. Now it's
what
go
up?
time. It's go time. Let's go.
It's go time. Get it.
Let's do this.
What
are
up,
you doing,
dude?
Not much, man. Just excited about this conversation.
Me too.
I always look forward to having conversations with you. Deep, meaningful conversations.
I do as well. And because this is a full episode, this is not dumb dudes. This is going to be some deep dudes, deep thoughts.
Yeah. No dumbness coming from today's episode.
No dumbness. No dumbness. Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. We were just talking about any dad fails this weekend. And I think the dad fail that I had is very appropriate for the conversation we're about to have. But so my boys, they like to fight. They fight a lot. It's very stressful. And I decided we were going to go, I think we went to Red Rocks right down the street for a concert for my wife's birthday. My mom and dad hooked up some Avett Brother tickets. It was friggin' awesome. Had a great time. But my mom dropped us off down the street, and the boys are home. Maya was out at a birthday party. And I said, hey, you know what? Let's just leave the boys here. And my mom was very uncomfortable with that. I'm like, Mom, I have a reading recommendation for you. It's called The Coddling of the American Mind. I'd like you to read that. And she's not going to read that.
But it was like a 5 minute. It was like a 5 minute thing, right?
Yeah, it's quick. Yeah, it's quick, dude. It's just a mile down the road. And so, but I wanted to be very intentional with the opportunity and the experience, because I wanted to give my oldest the opportunity to be in charge. I wanted my youngest to also be a contributing family member and to, force them to, in a situation where they're by themselves, they have to rely on each other and, whatever. And so I had a little talk with them beforehand and just talk about don't answer the door, blah, blah, blah. If you need to call mommy and daddy, that whole thing. And the doors are gonna be locked. And my youngest, Noah, he goes, well, daddy. And so he's on the stairs. Erica's next to me. He's looking down. We're looking up at him. And he goes, well, daddy, if a kidnapper comes, he says, I'm going to pull his pants down and kick him in the balls. Pardon my language. That's what he said. And I'm like,
so he's going to let the kidnapper come into the house,
come in,
pull his pants
down, bam,
kick him in the junk,
kick him in the soft spot.
Yeah.
And so
it's good, Noah.
And I immediately, I turned my head away because I know Erica is going to say something. And I turned my head away and I'm kind of looking at her, but I start dying laughing. They know I'm laughing. They have to. And I'm crying because it just caught me off guard. I'm like, where did that come from? Like, why did you say that? But I couldn't muster those words because I'm immature. And so I turn around and I start laughing. I'm crying. And Erica kept her composure. And she's like, a couple things. First off, Noah, you do not let him in. Second, we don't talk that way. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm dying, dude.
Yeah.
And it was such an interesting thing. And then Jake's like, no, Dad. And I had a hat on. So finally, when I brought myself together, Erica admonishes our youngest. Jake's like, well, no, Dad, what I would do. And he took my hat off, and he's like, I would take his hat off and I'd put it over his eyes, and then I'd punch him in the face. And I'm like, where are you guys getting this stuff? Like, what? No, you like, if any of that stuff really happened, like call the cops, do something. Like, don't, like, where's this coming from? But it's interesting in the context of what we're about to talk about, that was like their go-to, their default, like their idea of what tough is and what being a man and being alone is, and all these different ideas that swarm through their little brains, at such a young age. And it I guess on a more serious note, makes me question where I'm truly failing as a dad, not dad fails in a joking context, but where I'm truly failing as a dad, and how you are intentional and address these things. And I think that this conversation is going to be very insightful for that. And it's been very helpful for me.
Yeah, man. Well, it might not be just you that's failing as a dad and a man in general. It might be more of like an entire society. I think there's just this picture of what manhood is, that is brought by a lot of different things, marketing and just society in general. I think is and
how we're raised, right? How we're raised,
totally.
Because there's not, and I don't know how we got to this point. I don't know if I've not done enough studying on it to have any kind of authoritative thoughts on if there was some kind of shift and if it's specific to Western culture or whatever. I don't think it is, but it's just an interesting, and it's probably been an age. It's probably as old as time. This struggle, this challenge. But it's crazy, because what kind of got me interested in this is the other day, not the other day, probably a couple of weeks now, I was talking, I love this mastermind, dude. I love the Storehouse Mastermind and this group of dudes and the conversations we're having. They're so challenging. They're so good. It's challenged so many different things, everything, things I've looked at from spirituality to finances. It's been amazing. So I was explaining it to somebody. I don't remember. We were out on the street. I think it was a neighbor. And I was talking about just this idea of what we're doing, getting a group of men together, and then also talking about the retreats and going out and do fun, manly stuff. And his response was, oh, sounds like, and he very sarcastically, oh, sounds like you guys are going to just go do some of that toxic masculinity stuff. And I was like, I knew it didn't feel right when he said that. I knew, and the conversation kind of ended. I was chasing my kid, he chased his or something. But I left that conversation thinking, that's a really interesting thought that he came away with. And I started thinking about this toxic masculinity thing. And I admit that there are oftentimes these buzzwords and these things that we form opinions on and don't really understand what they mean, and don't really even have the inclination, desire, or wherewithal to dig deeper into some of these topics. But I was like, you know what? I need to learn more about this toxic masculinity, because I think we might be using this politicized term very wrongly. And I think there's probably a basis for what it really means. That's going to be really important, and it'll probably open some doors for me. And it did. I've not been disappointed. And so that really led me down a path of looking at toxic masculinity, understanding more what it means. And then surprisingly, it really informed from in my mind, some of the conversations we're having in the Storehouse Mastermind. But at the same, kind of around the same time, a very good friend of mine, a woman named Sharon, she's actually used to be my CEO. She's like, hey, I had told her about the mastermind. She asked what I was doing. I told her about the mastermind. And she said, I read this article and it made me think about you. So, I love what this whole idea of what you guys are doing with men. And that article led you and I, into reading deeply about some of these topics, and then also watching some awesome TED Talks. And before we really get into it, I want to read the definition, because I'm a definition guy.
Well,
but I want to read the definition.
Before you do that, I actually want to call you out on something, because I think it might be important for this conversation. Just before, when you said you were telling your friend about this retreat, and we're going to go do some manly events, right? Some man time together.
No. That's when I was talking to him.
Yeah,
that's how I was framing it. I was saying things like man stuff and man, like I was completely, and I don't think all that's bad, but I just was not in a, I hadn't dug deeply enough myself in what it means to be a man.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways we have, and as intentional as you and I are,
yeah.
I hadn't even dug deep enough to understand or be able to answer what toxic masculinity was, or like what man stuff is, or
right. Yeah. Because the stuff that like we plan on doing, like for our retreats, it's not man stuff at all. Like women do the same things all the time. Like, I mean, go climb a mountain, or go kayaking, or go mountain biking, or go paintballing, or like, it's not a man thing or a woman thing. Like, that's just fun stuff to do. Right. So anyways.
And I want to make one thing 100% clear. Stu and I mean, men are men and women are women, right? Like we're not suggesting that, that there's not uniqueness and beauty in these things that we are. And there's no we're not implying anything on what it means, to be a man or woman from a stereotypical standpoint. That's the whole point, right? That's the whole point of this conversation, is that we have created these ideas, and a lot of them are very wrong. And you calling me out right there, like my wife, if I'm like, I'm gonna go do some man stuff, like climb a mountain, her answer would probably be like, well, how many 14ers have you done? Because I've done more. Like, you're a good point.
So I'd probably climb a mountain faster than you.
Yeah, right. I mean, so there's like, to your point, it's these ideas that we've put these definitions and limitations, which is the whole when you're being intentional about this stuff. Because when you really think about it, and why this is so important, is we have daughters, and I don't want anybody else putting limitations on my daughter because she's a girl, right? I want to teach my kids, and I don't want my son to be treating his sister or his wife or his daughters in these ways either. And the quicker they can learn to be real men and deal with these issues, the better for them, the better their life is going to be, because they don't have to then go through counseling or whatever when they get to a point that they have to address these issues. We can model it, and we could be those models. So that's a great point, Stu.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
On to the definition.
So
give us this
definition. Let me
definition
pull this up, so I did a quick initially did a quick search on toxic masculinity, and a couple things stuck out. One, it said a set of attitudes and ways of behaving stereotypically associated with or expected of men, regarded as having a negative impact on men and on society as a whole. So that was one. And then there was a bit longer one that said the concept of toxic masculinity is used in academic and media discussions of masculinity to refer to certain cultural norms that are associated with harm to society and men themselves. Traditional stereotypes of men as socially dominant, along with related traits such as misogyny and homophobia, can be considered toxic due in part to their promotion of violence, including sexual assault and domestic violence. The socialization of boys in patriarchal societies often normalizes violence, such as in the saying, boys will be boys, about bullying and aggression. And as I read that, I was, it helped me to better frame what that, to take the polarization and the politicization of those words out of it, and my opinions when sparked with the emotions of politics and whatnot out of it, and really to recognize what it means and what the implications in my own household, right, in my own family, and to our group of men. And the idea that the bottom line is that these different stereotypes that ultimately can and do end in violence and pushing someone else down to pick yourself up, and in a false definition of what it means to be a man. And I think, you had highlighted it, and please talk about it. But Tony, what was his last name? The TED Talk we listened to?
Yeah, Tony Porter.
Tony Porter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tony Porter, the CEO of A Call to Men, and this, the TED Talk of the same title, A Call to Men, he highlighted a couple things that I thought was a really good picture in his own life, and that I immediately related with in that TED Talk.
Yeah, man. Yeah. From that article that we read that your female friend sent to you, there was a link to a TED Talk from Tony Porter. Watch it. And it's an old TED Talk. It's like 2010, something like that. I mean, it's pretty old.
I think it's like 10 years ago. Yeah. 12 years ago.
It's interesting that it was so old, and this, like, that was 12 years ago, right? And it's still an issue. Like, he's talking about it 12 years ago, and nothing's changed, really. He talked about how, as dads, how we react and we, talk to our children, pending if it's a boy or a girl, specifically, like if they get hurt, right? And I immediately thought about how I react to my two children, one boy, one girl, and it's very, very different. My daughter, she stole my heart from day one, right? And if she gets hurt and she comes crying to daddy, dude, I'm going to love on her. I'm going to oh, poor thing. Are you okay? Coddle her, caress her, see what's wrong, see if I can kind of help her in any way, give her a Band-Aid, even though it's not bleeding, all these things, right? Like I'm going to be there and like hug her and hold her. Versus my son, who comes and he's hurt, I immediately go to, oh, you're all right. You're okay, bud. Get up, be tough. Get up and go at it again. You're tough. And like, I do that.
Remind me, how old is your son?
4.
4.
Yeah. So I am teaching him at a very young age, at 4 years old, that men are tough and we don't get hurt. And it's not cool to cry, And it really made me think about how I'm treating my kids. And how did I get treated? I probably got treated the exact same way, right? My dad probably did the exact same thing to me, and his dad probably did the exact same thing to him. And it's just generational over and over and over again. And that's just how society has been. It's always made, the man, the tough, strong guy, and the woman, the soft, weak individual. And yeah, it was eye-opening for me, for sure, in a kind of check in the gut, like, dude, you got to start changing this.
And it's also the language, right? He said, he's like, he stepped back and he took note, and not only telling the boy it's bad, it's not okay to cry, but he said, he used words like, and I can absolutely I can absolutely relate, like, hey dude, stop crying. Like, stop crying is one. And then, I can't understand you when you're talking like that. Stop acting like this. Why don't you act like a man? Right. This is a 4-year-old boy. His example is he was talking about his 5-year-old son. And in my house, my kids, I do it all the time from when they were like 3.
Yeah.
My wife called me out the other day. She's like, dude, Noah is 5. Like, why are you saying he's not a man? He's not a man. He's a 5-year-old little boy.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a house where, if you're crying or whatever, they used to say, don't be such a girl. Don't be a girl. Or what was really popular back then too is, don't be so gay. Yeah. Right. These terms that are so broad, but they're also intended to be hurtful, and they're not in any way, they're not they're just not refined to and they're not sensitive, and it's not real. That's the problem, is they're lies.
Yeah.
Because then you really start formulating these ideas, and they're just wrong. They're wrong ideas that are carried over, like you said, generation to generation. And that was a big one in our house. Don't be such a girl. Don't be such a girl. And I think that, when you intentionally look at it, you realize, okay, my little guy is like, dude's 5 years old. Like, he's literally 5 years old. And there's a time and a place for everything, to include being a 5-year-old little boy that just wants comfort from, his mom or his daddy or whatever. And it was such an interesting TED talk. And then he highlighted you fast forward years and years and years. And he said I think he was 12. He said that he was in the car with his family, a bunch of women, and then his dad. And they just buried his brother, who was was a teenager, and something happened, tragic accident. And his dad did not cry. They stop at a rest stop. Everybody gets out of the car. I guess they had a limo leaving the funeral. They all get out, and it's just him and his dad in the car. And his dad completely breaks down. And during his breakdown, he's apologizing to his son, saying, "I'm sorry, I'm crying." And he's building him up, his son, building him up, saying how manly he is for not crying. And when you think about that, you're like, dude, I can't imagine losing a child. And the thing that I'm worried about is crying in front of somebody. Like, that's deep, dude. And that's powerful. And it's sad. And as he looks, as he's recounting the story, he's looking at it and is just like, man, I this has to be addressed. Like, this has to change, because, and he highlighted, he's like, I just lost my brother. He lost his son. And as a dad now, I can't imagine that pain. And then not feeling an outlet to be able to cry. It just was a very interesting TED Talk, very interesting conversation, and very powerful.
Yeah, man. And there was another TED Talk that was linked in this article from a guy named Justin Baldoni, and he's an actor. And the title of it is Why I'm Done Trying to Be Man Enough. And it's about 18, 20 minutes long, something like that. Really good. Similar topic. One of the things that caught me, and kind of on the same lines of how you're teaching your children, specifically boys that are going to turn into men. He said, I'm grateful to my dad for not teaching me how to be a man by, doing manly things and being tough and using my hands. But I'm proud of my dad and grateful for my dad for teaching me how to be a man by using my heart. And again, that just tugged on me immediately, and kind of just made me think about how I'm treating my boy, my son. And, is he seeing me use my heart? Is he seeing me be vulnerable? Is he knowing that it's okay to cry as a man? Does he see me, being sad? And it's an interesting thought, man. And really kind of opened my eyes to some things.
Yeah. He also highlighted, he said that, he has a group of he has a group of friends. They went on a man trip, and a men's trip. And he said that he did it intentionally because he was struggling through some things and he wanted to get around his buddies. And he said it was a 3-day trip, and he finally got the courage to bring up whatever was causing him shame on the 3rd day. And he said that when he finally was able to share it, the shame and whatever it was that he shared immediately disappeared. And what happened was this group of guys then opened up. And what you realize, and what we're seeing in the mastermind, is that, I mean, dude, we've cried a lot, like a bunch of babies, right? I mean, and it's a good, like a bunch of men. We cry like a bunch of men.
That's right.
But it's what's so interesting as you look at all these examples and you talk to other men who are in some strong men groups, that it's all a lie, right? Like it's all a lie. This whole idea of not crying and be tough and, men are this thing. And it's just a bunch of lies. And when you get in a group of men and you're able to talk through and be vulnerable, dude, it opens not only does it open a ton of conversations, but you realize how much men truly need and truly desire other men, truly desire to be around a group of men, where they can be vulnerable, where they can be heard, be understood, and they can be themselves and have permission to be themselves and have permission to have all the feelings that we as human beings have, and as Christian men, you look at the ultimate man, Jesus. And Jesus was not, he was not a picture of this machismo, treat people poorly. Like the dude got down with the kid at the kid level and was the guy that the kids were drawn to and attracted to because of who he was. He was the guy that was an advocate for women. He drew the line in the sand and said, he was not guilty, throw the first stone.
Yeah.
Protecting a woman. Right. And he was the guy that in the Bible, I think it's the shortest verse. You remember what the shortest verse in the Bible is? Jesus wept.
Yeah.
Right. He was the guy that wept. And he was also the guy that hung on the cross and took all our burdens. And that's our faith, right? And that's what we believe. And when I look at a model of a man, and then I look at a model of a father, the Father God, it's the traits. He created us with emotions. Like our emotions are not the bad thing. Maybe the way that we exercise our emotions or repress them, that's bad.
Yeah.
But the ability to turn our anger, because what we really feel is sorrow, and to accept that sorrow and cry and not turn it into something it's not, is a powerful thing. And that's the model, right? Like this is, and if you're not a Christian, or that's not your faith or your belief system, it still doesn't diminish the fact that it's who we are. And if you're honest with yourself and you assess it, you ask yourself some hard questions, and you ask yourself questions on who you want your kids to be, both your boys and your girls, I think you come out to the same conclusions of, who wants to be a self-described, I'm emotionally incompetent and I cannot express my feelings in a constructive manner. Like, is that who you want to be? Of course not, dude. And I'm not saying things like anger are bad. I believe that's an emotion that God gave us. When we observe things that people being exploited and someone hurts my kids, like it's very natural and okay to get angry about that.
Yeah.
It's also very natural and okay to be sad when your girlfriend breaks up with you, or you get in a fight with your wife or whatever. These things are, and to find a group of men that you can be real with. When you see like Navy SEALs in our group crying, like, dude, like, anybody tell me that's not a real man and the stuff that he's done, like, give me a break. Both of those things, being a Navy SEAL and being able to cry, make him a man. Right.
Sure.
And so it's just an interesting way to look at it. But I also think we don't give any time to analyze and be intentional about what it means to be a man, and really challenge and question our definition, and to become better in the process.
Yeah. I thought one of the things that I thought was super interesting that Justin Baldoni talked about, he did this like experiment, this social media experiment where, at first he was posting all of his social media channels about just kind of being real, right? Like, how much he loved his wife and his kids, and kind of mushy gushy, in the grand scheme of things, like how people view it as kind of, girly, right? Kind of feel lots of feelings, lots
Mushy,
of emotions.
mushy gushy. He said
Mushy,
mushy
gushy,
gushy.
mushy,
Got it.
gushy. That's a feeling. That's a feeling of goodness. But he was tracking his followership, and it was like 90% female followership when he was kind of doing all these type of posts. And he's married, like married to a female, has kids, you know, does manly stuff, you know, in the, you know, what is a manly stuff, like that's what people view it as. But he was posting stuff about his relationships, about being vulnerable, about his feelings, and it was all female followers. And then he changed it, and same profile, same everything, but all of a sudden he started posting like workouts and him like lifting weights and going on runs and eating healthy and you know, all these, you know, what the world views as manly things. And his followership actually changed and started, all dudes started following, and the women stopped. And you know, it's interesting how, like, if you think about social media in general and like what you're posting on there, and you know, I think most people just post highlight reels, right, of all the stuff that you think is going to be viral and get the most likes. And you know, I think social media in general would change drastically if people just kind of thought about this topic a little bit more, and we're courageous enough to post stuff that was really going on in their lives, you know, both good and bad, not just like the good highlight reels or what, you know, is going to get them the most likes and hearts and things to go viral. But if you were kind of brought like some realness to the equation, I don't know. And I think, you know, inside this mastermind group that we have, like, we get real pretty quick, right? You know, we start doing hot seats and we start getting into emotions and feelings, and tears start flowing. And man, it's pretty rad to see what happens to a man who starts crying, and what happens after that, and how these other men pour in and say, yeah, me too. Yep, I have that same issue going on. Here's let's band together and let's figure out how we can, you know, get this thing and pull through.
When it's what kind of life do you want to live, man? You know what I mean? Like, it's what kind of life do you want to live? Do you want to live a life that, like, you're content to live a stereotype and maybe repress your real feelings, or do you want to be free?
Yeah.
You want to be free to be who you're created to be, right? And I think it takes a lot of work to always repress. And one thing I loved, and to conform, and one thing I love is in when dude was talking about, he started posting all these, because he's a fit,
yeah,
I mean, he's an actor, and a lot of the
ripped up dude,
he's been kind of typecast to play these certain roles. And he's like, it's interesting because none of these roles are who I am as a man.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. But you know, good looking dude, freaking ripped. And he said that when he started posting that stuff, his male followership skyrocketed, and he got an award, you know, nominated an award for being like, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was like a fitness magazine, like man of the year or something.
Yeah.
He said that it's so interesting. He said, because all I was doing was conforming. I was conforming to the definition of what people think, and versus who I really am, which was gaining zero followership from dudes. And the other thing that he did, that he said, that I thought was really, really awesome, was he said that when he was posting his stuff about like loving his wife and all these really important things in life, one of the women tagged her boyfriend, and he replied to her and said, stop sending me this gay shit. That's what he replied. And so this dude then like DMs him or whatever and says, hey, I'm just curious, you know, because I want to learn but you know, why is me loving my wife, why do you characterize that, just out of curiosity, why do you characterize that as gay shit? And he said the dude responded quickly And he said he was shocked because he thought the guy was like going to go off on whatever. And he said, look, I'm really struggling with my identity and basically what it means to be a man. And I'm sorry. And he said he went into this whole thing about, I really love my girlfriend. I'm so grateful for her. And she puts up with me and all that. Like he just spilled it. Right. But he highlighted all the ways that he's the things he's been struggling with and the challenges because his identity has been wrapped up in these falsehoods. And then, fast forward, he said a few, whatever weeks, I don't remember the exact time frame, but the dude sent him another picture of him on his knee, proposing to his girlfriend. And he thanked him. He just said, thank you, because he just needed the permission to, and the change was immediate. He just needed the permission from another man, quote unquote, manly man, to be who he wants to be, who he really is and who he wants to be. And it just was a very powerful picture of, who are we being, what does it really mean to be a man? And are we fulfilling that? Are we fulfilling our deepest desires of what it means? Because like for me, dude, I love going out in the woods and I love fly fishing and I love hunting and I shooting guns and playing paintball and, I love lifting weights and working out, like these stereotypical things, which ironically, all those things my wife also loves. Yeah. But I also cherish when my daughter, and I miss it so much because she doesn't do it anymore, but when she used to paint my toenails, she'd paint them in all kind of colors, or she'd paint them depending on the football game coming up, right? Blue and gold if Navy was playing, or silver and black if the Raiders are playing, or rainbow colors because she felt happy that day, whatever. And I missed those, and that is just as manly. And I miss, or not, well, and now, we go and we do pedicures and manicures as she gets older, and we do these other things that are not quote unquote manly. But dude, my manhood has never felt jeopardized when I'm doing that. And in our group, when we're crying, dude, it's because we talked about something deep and powerful and moving. And I feel not even a tiny bit less manly. The opposite is true. I feel most in touch with who I am as a man. Like I'm getting emotional right now. Who I am as a man when I'm celebrating my children and my wife and these things that are so important that the only normal, natural response for me is tears. And I feel sorry for dudes that have not experienced that joy, that have not experienced the cleansing power of being surrounded by other dudes. Like I guarantee you, September 12th through 14th, when we have this first in-person Storehouse mastermind, that there's going to be tears, dude. Like I guarantee you that dudes are going to be crying.
Yeah.
And not because it's like, oh, let's get together and cry. It's because we have meaningful, deep relationships and we're going to be able to celebrate together, whatever those things are, and cry together for our hurts and just be freaking men together in everything that means.
Yeah.
That's who I want to be.
And how much closer do you feel and connected do you feel to those men who have been courageous enough to step out and be vulnerable? I mean, I feel way more connected and loved by that group of men than anyone else. I mean, besides my wife and
these guys show up every week, man, because we're not talking about, and again, there's nothing wrong with it. I love football, man. I played football. Like I love football.
Yeah.
But if that's all we ever talk about, I mean, it's cool, I guess, if you're my talk about football friend, but like, there's not a lot of depth in that.
Yeah. Very surface level.
Very surface. And a lot of us, that's where our relationships are. And so I go to our mastermind to get fed that additional, just that life-giving. A lot of us hang up, man. And we say, what do we say when we hang up, dude? And we mean it. Hey, dude, I love you, man. I love you, brother. I feel sorry for dudes that don't have that.
Yeah,
I do, because it's normal, it's natural, and it's desire, dude. It's a different level of bonding, and I'll tell you what, it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So I'll leave it, with this. We have lots of other kind of thoughts and ideas and topics on this article that we read and these TED Talks and the Storehouse Mastermind. But I'll leave kind of a challenge to those men is what would your life look like if you just opened yourself up and were courageous enough to be vulnerable and like got a little bit deeper than just talking about football? What would that look like? And I'm going to challenge you to think about that. And if that's something that you want to take on that challenge, I say, hey, let's look at the Storehouse Mastermind, because that's a good place to start. And if that's not what's for you, I would challenge yourself to look somewhere else. Maybe it's a church group. Maybe it's just a couple of dudes in the neighborhood getting together and hanging out and kind of going a little bit deeper than just talking about hunting and fishing.
Yeah, man. And again, nothing wrong with hunting and fishing.
Nope.
But it's, I'll tell you, when I pick I'm very jealous with who I pick to take hunting and fishing, because what typically happens, well, one, if you like go fishing with Stu, he's not gonna catch any fish, right? So there's got to be something more,
dude. I got a new rod. I got a new reel. I got all my gear. I'm all set up, dude. I'm gonna be a fish catching machine.
Hey, dude, I'm not gonna lie to you. I almost canceled this podcast this morning because I was gonna go fish. I'm not gonna lie, but
and you didn't invite me.
I didn't cancel, so I didn't go.
Okay,
because this conversation was that important to me. But no, but my point is, I pick who I go with because the drive out. I'll tell you, the drive out and the drive back are somewhat, because I like to fish solo. I love just being, in God's beauty, and for me, it's very meditative. But the drive out and the drive back, usually an hour, no less than an hour. Whoever you're with, it's just the conversations have been amazing. If you pick the right people, right? And so just the opportunity to, and usually it's just the guys, and that's how I want to frame my life, man. I want to spend time with the men. The intentional time I spend with men, I want it to be spent being deep and meaningful. And I just have kind of lost. I mean, there's important. Let's talk about the game. That stuff's all good for bonding. But if it never gets beyond that, my time is too short. My time just is too valuable to not be pouring into meaningful relationships.
Love it, dude. That was not dumb. It was deep. This is not a Dumb Dudes Deep Thoughts episode, but it's good, man. We'll post those TED Talk links in the show notes. I would highly recommend going and watching those. It will open up your mind and start have you thinking a little bit differently. And we'll also put a link to the Storehouse Mastermind in the show notes. Check it out. It's on our new website, storehouse310.com/mastermind. And yeah, let's go be real men. What do you think?
Yeah. Let's be men. Let's be men. Let's start crying real quick.
You start talking about kids and family, like it'll go to tears real fast.
Game over.
Yeah,
game over
real fast. So, all right.
Brother. Well, you know what?
What's up?
I love you.
Love you too, brother. Love you too, man. I might start crying if we continue to go on this road. Like this, share this, give us 5-star reviews. Be vulnerable. Go be deep. Tell another man that you love him.
Yeah, buddy.
And
Make
go.
it a great day, friends.
Fill the storehouse, not your storehouse. Fill the storehouse.
The storehouse. All right. Till next time.
See you.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to Filling the Storehouse. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe and share it with someone you love. And if you really felt inspired, leave a 5-star review so we could continue to grow and help other Christian entrepreneurs fill their storehouse. If you're interested in creating financial freedom through real estate investing, be sure to check out our website at storehouse310turnkey.com. We'd love to serve you through our platform of building the kingdom. Just click on the contact link and we'll reply to you as soon as we can. Again, thanks so much for listening. Now go fill your storehouse and make it a great day.